to host Mr. Aditya Arya, a renowned Indian photographer whose work spanned commercial, travel, and archival photography. Mr. Arya launched his professional photography career in way back 1980 after graduating from Delhi University. So please join us as we explore his incredible journey behind the lens. So, Mr. Arya, thank you for taking your time out to just share your journey, your story with us. So, my first question would be, what was there in your mind to start this museum?
So, museum was never the idea. It was sheer madness and interest in the history of photography. As I was a photographer, I studied history in college, and it always intrigued me, the history of my own profession. How did the silver grains evolved, and later on, how did the silver grains turned into the pixels of today? So I was always keen to understand what happened. It was all mystery, and one was, being a photographer, you're an explorer. You're always looking into, you're diving deep down into mines and into various places and taking photographs. So the history of photography was like diving deep down, trying to understand what happened in photography.
आपके कॉलेज से निकलने के बाद फोटोग्राफी का जो पैशन है वो कैसे आया?
So, very simple. When I was young in college, my father was a professor at St. Stephen's College, and in 60s, there were not too many places you could go to in Delhi. And there were no pubs, there were no clubs, there were no malls. Yes, there were clubs only for the rich. My dad used to take me to the kabadis. Why? He was very interested in the old records, 72 RPM. And he used to be looking at old records of Talat Mahmud, D.V. Pulaskar, and really. And in that process, visiting the kabadis, I realized there were a lot of interesting stuff, photographic gear lying there. And that intrigued me. Occasionally, I picked up one or two pieces and I brought them home. And there was no Google.
Yeah.
So one had to go to the library, pore over the encyclopedias, Britannica, trying to understand what kind of companies were there, Kodak, Zeiss, Leica. And that's when I got really interested in the history of photography. At the age of 17, I started selling my pictures to a couple of publications.
You have a lot of experience in travel photography, food photography, interior. So, what was your first assignment never made you to look back and you took it as a career?
So what inspired me was a lot of travel magazines. Magazines like National Geographic. But we had magazines like India Magazine in India. And we had magazines like Destination India. In 80s, a lot of interesting magazines were coming up in India who were looking for nice pictures, articles, photo features, and money wasn't great, but it was good to cover your expenses. We could sell our pictures for between 100 rupees to 500 rupees, which was good money. So if your 10 pictures were picked up, you made $2,000.
Yeah.
And in 80, $2,000
It was
was a
quite a
lot of
money.
money,
Lot of
and we
money.
could travel. The cost of the film used to be only 40 rupees, 30 rupees. Travel was cheap. So I decided to explore the country and travel and take pictures.
There is always a role model. Those days you were just picking up the photography. Who was your role model that time?
I I was slightly influenced by Kulwant Roy, whom I knew as a young college student. He was a family friend, and but he was quite against me taking up photography as a profession.
He himself was a photographer. He was against of it. Yeah?
Yeah, because his last few years, end of his life was pretty sad. He said, "You'll never make the kind of money people are making today." I told him it's not about money, it's about exploring the world. He said, "No, you should look at other things." Anyway, but nothing could dissuade me from doing what I wanted to do, which was to explore and not to do a job. I've never done a job in my life. I keep telling people there's so many things to do. Why do you want to do a job? Explore the world. So, that's the way it evolved for me.
So, which year you thought to actually display your work? Which year it was, and what was the theme of displaying the work?
I've never displayed my work. Uh, First 30, 40 years, I was busy shooting.
Oh,
No, it was getting published.
okay.
So, display is something I was never keen to. We were very interested in publishing. I always considered publishing is far more respectful. But things have changed now. Now the galleries there were not enough galleries those days. There were
True.
no galleries.
True. And especially for photography,
Oh yeah.
there's not. There are many popular galleries for only on the paintings and the sculpture to display. But for
Things are
photography,
changing
yeah, things
now.
are changing now. Yeah. So you traveled a lot. Uh, Kulwant Roy's work, you started archiving. What came to your mind to archive his work?
Okay. You must know his story. My family knew him from 1920s or early in Lahore, and then everybody met up again in India after the partition. He also shifted, my mother's family also shifted, and he was my uncle's close friend. He learned photography from my great grand uncles who used to run a photography studio in Lahore by the name of Gopal Chitra Kutir. He learned from there. Everybody migrated to India, dispersed to various parts of the country, and he met me in early 60s when I was born, and he showed me his work. He left his work with me in 70s and 80s, passed away. I never opened his trunks for 25 years. He left thousands and thousands of negatives, boxes, but I only opened them in 2008 or 9. And that's when the story came out of his collection, about his collection.
Okay.
Because you have to understand, as a photographer, I was very busy traveling all over the country. My mother used to tell me a lot, अरे भाई खोल के देख लेना, उसको खराब हो जाएंगे. I used to tell her, I'll do it tomorrow. that tomorrow never happened for 25 years. And when it happened, my life changed, the story changed, because I spent 3 years archiving, digitizing his work, because I realized lot had deteriorated in those 25 years. Negatives had cracked, and we lost 25-30% of his work if I had taken them. But out of the boxes much earlier. But there's always a right time and a right place for everything which happens for you.
Correct.
In 2008 and 9, technology was there to digitize. In 80s and 90s, there was no technology to digitize.
Yeah. So how did you transform them? How did you manage to do the digitization, convert them into the print and archive them? So it would be quite a task for you.
I set up a digitization unit. We employed some half a dozen people. It took us 3 years to digitize his work.
Oh.
And to sort it out. He left it in boxes and crates, and his end of his life, he was quite disoriented. He knew he was dying of cancer.
Oh.
He did not have a family. He had nobody.
Okay.
He just put them in a big trunks and left them like that.
After archiving, what made you to create a gallery around his work?
Meanwhile, I was collecting photography equipment.
Okay.
Now,
That's an interesting part.
very interesting, because when I saw his work, he left few cameras also.
Okay.
I tried to connect the dots, pictures and cameras. How did his imaging changed as he changed his equipment? So when you see how the cameras have evolved and how people start looking at pictures and images in a different way, with TLRs, with SLRs, with
Very fixed lens.
the sheet film cameras.
Correct.
So, then I started connecting the dots, and that's when the idea of a place which could connect the dots evolved. So, 2009 is when I opened this museum in a small scale in the basement of my house, where people could visit by appointment only.
So how come this big museum happened? And as you rightly said, that you were collecting the cameras, you were collecting all the related to it. What is the span of time you got a ocean of the cameras here?
So what you see here is only part of my collection.
Really?
I have maybe 30-40% more lying in the basement of my house.
Oh.
So, once you are a collector, you are a collector.
I swear.
And you like to see how things evolve.
It requires a lot of money also, because all these cameras I've never even seen in even the magazines, and nothing is like available to see. If you Google unseen cameras you have, how come you got to know about this collection lying somewhere in the world and bring them to India and putting into the museum? It's quite a task for you.
I'm a multitasker. I do hundreds of things
That I can see,
simultaneously. I like to think and connect dots. I have ideas which I either write down or they get stored up here. That this is a good idea. This needs to be done. I like to think and plan. And when you have a lot of ideas, you will find that they converge at some point. That's how this idea evolved. And especially today, when today's generation has no idea about the evolution and history of photography, a place like this becomes very essential and important.
But the cameras, what you have here, the display you have done, it's two different aspects of the camera industry, the photo industry. Digital cameras and these manual cameras.
I come from the time of these cameras. We are the true and the last of analog generation.
Very true.
So what happens is we understand the working of analog. Today's generation only thinks of 64 GB cards. Today's generation lives and thrives on a button called delete.
Yeah.
The delete button did not exist
In our time.
in our
Yeah.
times, where everything had to be created here before you press the button. So it becomes very essential to understand the idea of pre-visualization. The ability to pre-visualize and click is the story of photography. Great photographers who shot on film were able to pre-visualize.
Preview. Correct.
Today's generations don't have any ability. They'll take 10,000 pictures and then go delete, 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 and finally they will merge 2 or 3 pictures and produce one perfect picture.
That too after editing, yeah.
Yeah.
Heavy editing.
We did not have Photoshop when we were practicing.
Yeah.
So you have to, we are really privileged and the last of the analog generation who worked. I shot, there were days when I was shooting 50 rolls to 100 rolls in a day on assignments.
Correct.
Today, people shoot millions of pictures on SD cards.
Yeah.
But our pictures, each picture was a perfect picture. It did not require any editing.
Editing.
We were on assignment, we were given 100 rolls, and that's it. And we came back with 50 rolls, which were perfect.
Yeah. I remember I started during that film role and transparency film.
Yeah.
I would like to know about your childhood. Those days, parents is always like to have their children to study so seriously that they can get into the engineering, they can become a doctor or scientist or anything that sort actually. But photography was never been taken so seriously though. How did you convince your parents to get into photography?
Firstly, nothing required any convincing. It's my life, my decision.
Fantastic.
Very clear about it. There were no peer pressures. When parents cannot apply pressure, forget the friends. I mean, yeah, you want to be a banker, you want to be an IAS officer, you want to be a IPS, that's your problem. You want to be working in corporate field, that's your problem. You sort it out. My thing was, I was going to enjoy life. I was going to see the world.
Fantastic.
So that's what I did. Explore the world and made some money. There was no money in the beginning, but money did happen at some stage. And so I will not deny that there was no money later on. Yes, it did happen at some stage.
So which was your first camera?
1982, I had first big assignment which gave me ample money to buy a Nikon FM2.
Oh.
I was one of the official photographers of the Asian Games which were held in India, and they were, we used to get 500 rupees a day, and all expenses covered. So 18 days, I made 9,000 rupees.
Wow.
Camera cost was 5,000 rupees.
Wow.
A new FM
To
and FM,
Acha.
FM 10,
Acha. Oh, okay.
and which became my workhorse.
And which was your first assignment abroad? Any assignment you've taken abroad or?
Oh, yeah, many. I traveled abroad, worked abroad. Yeah, worked in Europe, Africa, and so what was most interesting is I was able to travel very extensively in India, except for two states, Mizoram and now I have traveled in Arunachal also. I've not lived and worked in Mizoram. Otherwise, there is no state in this country, no major town where I have not lived or worked. So one traveled very extensively on assignments, right from Ladakh to each and every island of Lakshadweep to each and every major village, town of Nagaland, to Rajasthan, to Goa, to Kerala, to Karnataka, to AP, Andhra Pradesh, J&K, Ladakh, I know like back of my hand. So one traveled very extensively. It's the only profession in the world where most of the time somebody else pays for you to travel.
Correct.
So I look at it like that.
Oh, it will not be right and fair to ask this question, but I definitely like to ask this. Which is your favorite state? You traveled a lot. You
All
are
of them.
Sitting.
I wish I could have a house in each state.
That's very nice. So you traveled across the geography in India. The food habits changes actually.
Oh, I love food of all kinds. I can eat anything. I attended Tiger Feast in Nagaland. I have pictures of Tiger Feast.
Oh,
I've had mithun, which was cooked in dog's blood. I love food from South India. I love spicy food from Kerala. I love food.
yeah, very interesting. Very interesting.
So, yeah.
Any assignment in India which you think that was like the best and you still remember, you discuss whenever you go for any lecture or you talk about any assignment which you think is like, yes, the best?
Each day of a photographer is a very memorable experience.
True.
One day you are in the mines, second day you could be shooting a politician, third day you could be shooting a vice president of a company, fourth day you could be shooting a worker in a factory. So, for me, each day, and I remember each day very distinctly. I can tell you I was there that day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But these days, actually, a lot of, you have to have experience of that particular line. If you're shooting food, you have to shoot food, interior, person shooting interior. And
So that's the beauty of it. In 90s, there were just 200 of us in India.
oh,
So we had ample opportunity to excel in anything we wanted to do. I did everything except fashion. I did not touch fashion. I loved food, I loved interiors, I loved industrial work, I loved shooting corporate work. I did the best of product work. So photography is all about seeing. How do you see things? How do you see light?
correct.
And what does your client expect? What's the end result required?
True. Any assignment where you got stuck with your gear and you thought, I wish I had another body. Any experience you had?
The most important thing for a photographer is to go prepared. I worked in I worked in Russia for a few years. I used to travel back and forth. I used to shoot for the Bolshoi theater.
Okay.
From 89 till 91, I made many trips. Nothing was available. I used to take my milk powder, I used to take my tea bags, I used to carry some emergency food, I used to carry all kind of things besides my 200 kgs of equipment
200.
to do the shoots. So, to say that photographer lands up somewhere and says, yes, in 2000, in late 90s, Dabur brought out an ad on me which said, I can do anything, anywhere, except I like to travel with Pudin Hara. Because
I think
one thing which gets compromised is your stomach. So it's a very nice ad they had brought out. Photographer gets to travel everywhere and he can fix things, he can do things, but the only thing which he needs to travel with is Pudin Hara.
Nice. So you traveled a lot, you worked a lot abroad. When you thought seriously to open the museum for the people?
I never did. When 2009, when I made my place available, a lot of people came, saw. One gentleman came from the government and he said, what will you do with all this? So I said, I'll make a museum. He said, let's talk. And this museum evolved. So it's purely, nothing is planned. Somebody somewhere plans things for you.
Yeah, correct.
Like somebody sent you here today.
Absolutely, yeah. The Sam Supreme Power is there.
Yeah.
So, why this place? Why it is not in the main city, Delhi? Why Gurgaon you chose?
Delhi has no place. I was offered some places in West Delhi and things. Delhi is saturated.
True.
To get this bigger place in Delhi is impossible.
Impossible, yeah.
Today, Museo Camera is one of the biggest public-private partnership in this country with the government, where they facilitated the land and I created this in collaboration with them.
How much time it took to establish?
17 months from the day I started digging the land.
And how many, have you taken help of any architect or you designed it yourself?
There were no full-time architects, they were friends who helped me.
Setting up such a
Yeah.
beautiful...
Friends who were designers, architects, who put in their heart and soul into this. And I sat here and I constructed this building.
Any story which you like to share about this museum ever since you opened this? You wanted to communicate to people that, this is the place where...
So when the contractor left this, after finishing it, he said, next time if I take any contract in Gurgaon, I'll see, आपका नाम तो नहीं है उसमें. Then I'll say कि मुझे नहीं करना. Because I used to tell them, they used to say government contracts खत्म नहीं होते हैं सर, चलते रहते हैं. मैंने कहा no, I need a deadline. I need deliverables. So for me, deliverables are very important.
True.
We as a photographer go into a shoot, end of the day there is a deliverable.
Yeah.
It cannot carry on beyond next day. It has to be wrapped. Shoot is always wrapped.
Wrapped, yeah.
You say wrap up.
Yeah.
What do you say?
Yeah, wrap
It's a wrap.
Yeah. True.
But government contractors say,
Keep on going on.
sir, chalta rahega, enhancement hogi. So life is very different for a photographer. It has to have a end.
Sir, in this museum, I have seen a lot of cameras which is like 100, 200 year old. कहाँ से ये सब आपने
I still have a
ढूंढ
similar
के-
collection waiting at home. So, you know, there are times when you look for things, and then there are times after some time when things start looking for you. It becomes the other way around.
So in the span of 35 years, you know collected so many cameras.
Yep.
What would be the number?
I have 7,000-8,000 objects.
7,000-8,000 objects. Wow, that's quite a number. And which is the oldest camera here?
I have one from 1860 here, daguerreotype.
But how you are getting information that this camera is lying somewhere to how
I'm
will
in
you
touch
approach-
with all the kabadis of the world. They are my friends.
Really?
Yeah.
Have they traveled to this museum?
Oh
Whoever
yes, and they've brought me gifts and they've sent me gifts. कि सर ये आपके म्यूजियम के लिए है. This is, some man from
That's
England.
interesting.
I like to give you this for the museum.
Really?
Yeah. He deals with old cameras. This is for the museum. They follow me on the net in social media.
But the internet has come in like very late, like 2010 or something. But still you keep getting cameras? Or
Yep, yeah.
Before that was like task for you.
Oh yeah, before that it was
So
difficult.
as you traveled across the world,
Whenever I was traveling, I would take a day off, meet the local kabadis and say, अच्छा क्या है दिखाओ.
which is the country you got the most of your item?
All over. Europe has maximum number.
They are all very antique now. And every camera has a very unique story. Which is the camera you like that?
All of
yes, all of them. I knew that you are going to say this only. बाप के लिए बच्चे कितने भी हों,
All of them, each one of them.
Getting them from Kavadi wala and preserving them, cleaning, maintaining them.
It's an ongoing process.
Yes. Do you have any kind of a person who is actually helping you to
No,
maintaining them?
Interns come, interns go, and we just do it. I teach them how to do it, and we do it.
Too many Ballo cameras are here, the big cameras, the plate cameras. I mean, it's really nice to see such a collection.
We
And I
have
never
thousands of plates from mid 19th century, late 19th century.
Any camera you got from Britain or any
Lots.
palace or
Britain,
Any-
yeah, lots.
any principalities or something?
You mean from the royalty?
Royal families, yeah.
Not really, but yeah, each camera has a huge story.
So how do you remember all these cameras? This camera you bought it. You said there are 7,000 cameras all around here. Do you identify?
I remember most of the cameras from where they came.
But how will you make the people, those who are coming here, to understand the story about the camera? Have you done a lot of?
Oh, we have an audio guide tour. We have extensive information on each panel. Yeah.
The new generation, the Gen Zs. How would you make them understand what is the value of this camera? Because they will not understand the camera at all. Now the camera is completely came to your even the phone.
So that makes it more valuable. That makes it more interesting when somebody doesn't understand. So one kid. So we get hundreds of school children here every month.
Okay.
Sometimes 500, 1,000. One kid comes to me, sir, I have a question. There were 50 other kids standing. He says, I need to understand. This big camera, sir, how did they take selfies with it? Now, I did not, that was the first time. I said, my God, this kid is already thinking. He asked me, how much does it weigh? I said, few hundred kgs. But sir, how did they get selfies out of it? I said, this is amazing.
That's so cute of him asking this
So, you have to understand their mindset.
mindset. Yeah. What would you like to say to the new generation about photography?
Firstly, there is something called clicking a picture, pre-visualization, which has to happen here before you press the button. Life is not about the delete button. There is a lot more to taking pictures, and what is beautiful is the slowness of the process. People are going back into analog. It's a very slow process. You take the shot on the film roll, then you process, then you make a print. So slowness has a beauty. It's like, what should I say? It's like drinking 50-year-old wine or 25-year-old single malt versus having a thara, which is the SD card.
Correct. Correct.
You get a high,
Yeah.
or
Immediately,
you relish and you enjoy the process.
True. So you have just collected the cameras. Any enlargers, black and white? color?
Everything is there. You haven't seen that
Yeah, I
dark room
could,
there.
yeah.
We have a working dark room. I'll show it to you,
Sure.
where we teach photography.
Okay. Okay. So any classes, courses?
Oh yes, we have analog classes where film is given to students. They expose.
Acha, you still
Yeah,
have
yeah.
a
We
film?
teach all the historic processes of photography, like salt prints, cyanotypes, gum bichromate. Everything is taught here.
So how are you procuring all these films now? Because it is rare to.
Oh, no,
in the
no.
market.
Films are back in a big way.
Really?
Oh, Kodak, Ilford, everything is back.
Oh, this is a
Yes.
good news actually. Yeah. But the price is the same, or they increase the price?
What
Because the
used to cost us 40 rupees
Huh.
today sells for 1200 rupees.
Oh
a
my
single roll of film. 1200 for a roll of film, and then they charge 600 rupees for processing. What we used to pay 20 rupees for processing of
Yeah.
black and white.
Correct.
Today, black and white processing is costing 600 rupees. And then you have to get it scanned, which costs another few
Another
hundred
few
rupees. So, people shoot one roll of film and they come back and say, "Sir, this is lifetimes. I've got a silver film shot."
And we started with that only actually.
We used to do hundreds of films every
True.
day.
Can photography industry become sustainable?
It's an interesting question. It is sustainable now. As long as there are Ambani weddings, sustainability will happen. I believe they spent few crores on photography. They had many photographers covering it. So the whole focus of photography is shifting towards events and shadis.
So what role second-hand cameras plays to reduce the e-waste?
Unfortunately, yeah, e-waste is an issue, and we have started making, what should I say, installations using old cameras. Have you seen one outside? Hugby?
Yeah, correct.
So that's an installation. So we convert old stuff into art pieces and commission artists.
Yeah, I've seen that converted the cameras into the lamps.
Lamps.
Yeah,
So
very nice.
my idea is just don't throw it. Think of it as an art piece.
How can photographer measures their ecological footprints?
So photographers play a very important role as archivist, documenter of places, because photographers actually leave behind stories for the future generations about degradation, about deforestation of lands. So they are playing a role indirectly by leaving a story behind for the future generations uh, by creating these very valuable documentaries, uh, projects,
Okay.
you know, which are far more valuable than the written word.
True.
Because visual documentation plays a very important role. And in future, people will be referring to these images and saying, wow, this is what it was. You already do that. And you say, why God, Antarctica was like this, Arctic
Yeah.
was like this,
Yeah. Correct.
and today it's like shrunk. So, documentary photography, I mean, plays a very important role.
How do you see this new camera industry, mirrorless cameras?
Absolutely stunning results, but they all have to watch out for how far the story of the phones will go. I keep telling the camera companies, these guys have destroyed you.
Correct.
Why don't you put a GSM chip so that people can shoot while people can talk while they're shooting? Because now people can take pictures while shooting.
True.
Why don't you hit them by putting a GSM chip in your camera?
That's really interesting.
So, yeah, I mean, major players have already reduced their production lines, have stopped producing DSLRs.
Oh,
The name of the game is mirrorless,
okay.
which is also being threatened by the
Camera or
by
phone
the,
cameras.
by the mobiles. So the only battle right now in the mobile field is not the battery, not the capabilities, it's about the image making.
Image making.
They all talk about my camera is better than this camera.
Yes, camera.
I have so many apps where my camera can actually manipulate your pictures.
Yeah. And the very important question which I want to ask, how do you see this AI playing the role to creating photos these days actually? The camera is there, we can click the picture. But post-production can be done using AI software. How do you foresee that actually?
AI is going to be a game changer because recently some mobile manufacturers have they have used AI technology to add things to the cameras. So, in advertising today, if I'm shooting a scene, I don't have to have models. I can shoot a scene without models. Models can be just brought in, added to the scene. AI takes care of that.
Correct.
So the point is, image making as such is going to be heavily influenced by.
But how do you see that AI
It's
is it
inevitable, firstly. Change is inevitable. Only time will tell
Time will tell, correct.
whether it was good or bad or ugly.
Earlier it was like, in the analog cameras, you are printing your photos and where to douse, where to burn, how to make a middle tone and all
So
that.
everything will remain where it is. New things will evolve. They have to evolve. I mean, one of your senses is being overtaken. Two of your senses are being overtaken by AI. Sound,
Correct.
seeing,
Scene, yeah.
but touch and feel
Yeah.
and your palate
True.
will still
Very
remain.
true.
AI will not
This
be
is
able
very
to
important,
touch
yeah.
this
Yeah.
and will not be able to
Touch feel.
touch, feel, and will remain.
It will remain. The
So
taste will
it's
remain, yeah.
how the senses are being manipulated.
I think photography, there is no end to it, sir. And producing a good picture should be the aim, and there is always shortcut for everything. Not even today in AI world, even earlier also there were.
Well,
Yeah.
you want to get a high,
Yeah.
you can have Thara.
Correct.
For me, it is touch, feel, dark room, chemicals, the smell of hypo, which I relish.
Sir, would you like to add something from your side which we have not touched upon? And just share one of your greatest experience throughout your journey. Who you have shot as a person, or any kind of a picture frame you have made it. Something.
So, I had a very interesting beginning at the age of 20. I shot stills for one of the most iconic films ever made in India called Jaane Bhi De Yaaro.
Wow.
I was part of the crew,
Oh,
and as a 20-year-old still photographer, I had the pleasure of living, working with great actors like Nasiruddin Shah.
wow.
And I was also involved with films like Chashme Badur. I was also involved with Saeed Mirza's classic film called Mohan Joshi Haziro, again with Nasiruddin Shah. So I immensely value my early years in Bollywood. I hated Mumbai as a place.
Okay.
But 80, 81, 82, I worked there, had lived there with these people, came back to Delhi, but those experiences live on. We had Nasiruddin Shah talking about those experiences here last year.
Oh.
We called him here. This place was packed with some 400 people
Wow.
listening to him for almost 2 hours.
Oh,
Yeah, he narrated his life
fantastic.
and his days when he shot with me.
Oh. So, how many pictures you shot sir, so far?
I shot 4 5 pictures and I came back because Mumbai, I'm from Delhi and I never liked
No,
Mumbai.
you and I. Yeah,
I couldn't live there.
correct. Bombay has a different
Yeah.
taste altogether. Great.
So I greatly value my Bollywood days, but these were not hardcore Bollywood films. These were art filmmakers. They were great filmmakers.
When you got your first money out of photography, what was your reaction and how much it was actually? In which year?
I started selling my pictures at the age of 20, and believe me, I discovered it's an interesting way to make a living, to travel and be footloose and create images which were published in some of the best publications.
Even these days, photographers has not been given the respect which they get.
So that's very interesting question. What's happened to photography? I told you some time back in 90s there were 200 of us. Today there are 2 million.
Yeah.
So today there is no cost attached to becoming a photographer. You buy a digital camera, you buy a chip, that's it. There is no recurring cost. Those days, it was the cost of the film, the camera, the lenses, and the processing and making sure that each picture was perfect, because there was no Photoshop, there was no SD card.
True.
So, today, that entry you buy for once, and that's where the story ends. And you can just keep on producing pictures. When we worked in 80s, 90s, early 2000, images were created for publications. The lifespan of an image was for 6 months to a year. Today, the lifespan of a picture is 15 seconds. Why?
Correct.
The client will tell you, sir, ये सिर्फ आज शाम तक है, हमें हटा देनी है, कल सुबह तो हम नई पिक्चर डाल रहे हैं. So the value of images have come down.
Yeah.
Why? Because the client feels, yeah, am I going to spend 10,000 rupees for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hour, 4 hours? Let's just, and what is it? It's being seen on 2-inch by 2-inch screen.
True.
It's not being published in an art magazine. So the value has been degraded.
yeah,
I mean,
degraded.
you can, half the flaws are not visible on the screen.
True.
Then you can always do cut paste,
Yeah. There.
change the hairstyle,
Yeah.
put a topi. So why do you have to spend money on the photographer? So photographers are losing their. So that's a very big issue.
Big issue.
Yeah.
True.
Firstly, too many photographers, artists fighting for a very small, shrinking pie, which is being divided in millions. And so photographers are saying, Sir, sirf naam chhap dena, mera paisa nahi chahiye.
Haan.
Now, when that happens, so BBC says, if you are in this area, please share. There has been a tragedy. We'll be happy. Please send us pictures on this. They don't say we'll pay you. They'll say we'll put your name on.
We'll put your name on it. Yes.
Many magazines and publications will.
They are doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. And they immediately get 50,000 pictures and they upload them.
That's sad, isn't it?
It's. Things evolve. When there is no cost attached to. The guy looks at it as he's a hobbyist, he's got a good camera, and he wants his name there. A lot of time my friends are complaining, some magazine, this very high-end magazine, fashion magazine says, please send us, do this feature for us, we'll put your name and photograph with it. But there is no money.
When we spend a lot of money buying heavy stuff, people even ask which camera you use, the lenses you're using, lights, what all.
But
and when
there
people
is
are talking here,
no, here there is a downside. There's the other side of the story is magazines were printed in lakhs. Today they're printed in thousands. But their online
edition.
edition is in lakhs. Because people are not buying the
magazines. Or newspaper is also shrinking.
Yeah.
What advice you like to give for a person who want to become good photographer?
It's not for me to give that advice, but think, do you want to make money out of it or you want to be an artist? If you want to be an artist, well and good. If you want to make money out of it, you'll have to think twice.
Okay.
If you're an artist, then you're not working for money. Then you can create great pictures, sell few, and make sure you get enough money to buy new equipment. Launch yourself as an artist.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, photography is a form of expression and creating art.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Arya. It was great talking with you. And I'm really very happy that today we got a chance to talk to you and we got to know a lot about this museum and your personal side of creating such a beautiful museum. And because of you, your vision, we could see so many cameras, so many antiques which we have never thought of. So I would like to thank you once again.
So each camera has a story. Try talking to them. They'll tell you their story.
Thank you so much, Mr. Arya, for spending your time and talking with us. We had a pleasure of hearing about Mr. Arya's journey During the conversation, Mr. Arya spoke about his life, journey, and the challenges of running the Museo camera. His efforts in preserving India's visual history through the Indian Photo Archive Foundation and Museo camera have been remarkable. His legacy is one of the preserving the past and inspiring future generations of photographers. We hope you enjoyed this insightful conversation. For more such successful stories, do like, share, and subscribe to our channel. God bless everyone.